All right, man. What's going on, everybody? Zerse here, and today I have a very special guest on. Now, this guy, you guys have heard his commentary a couple of times. He has actually helped me make some pretty popular videos I have. He helped me make both Not All Men videos, part one and part two, and some other stuff that I cannot remember at the top of my head. My friends, man, I wanted to introduce you to my pal, ChaosSixthFleet. By all means, man, go ahead and say what's up. Say hello to all the people out there.
Hello to everyone. This is my first Google Hangout, so don't expect much. I'll probably just be going off Zerse's lead and we'll talk about all kinds of things from feminism to just the world in general.
Yeah, exactly. So, one topic that I wanted to start us off with is I talk a lot about feminism a lot, but one topic I really haven't glanced over is why do you think it's so easy to convince women that they're oppressed? I don't think I've chatted much about that. So let's start talking about that.
Well, I think it's probably because it's an easy thing to lure people into. Like, it makes it all about you and all your problems aren't your fault, they're someone else's. And a lot of things I actually say can kind of makes sense to someone. Like if you're talking to someone who is a rape victim, then it makes sense to them. And then everyone feels bad for them, so then they have to follow them along, or else they'll just end up being outcasted. Like a lot of it is almost peer pressure into it. Like to follow this idea that we have going, that makes a lot of sense to us because we're not totally informed of what's going on, or you're going to be outcasted. Like a lot of people that stand up against feminism, they don't last very long because then you have every media going against them saying you're against women.
Yeah, you have a point there. I've always it's always been one thing that's been in the back of my mind, but like I said, I've never actually made a video to really discuss the psychology of how these feminists get so ingrained in this kind of ideology of victimhood. And they're not the only people. I've noticed even with some black people, they get caught in these identity politics of being pro-black and saying that the white man is always against them and whatnot. But with black people, in general, it kind of makes sense to manipulate some of them into an oppressed class because you have the history of slavery. And while it's true historically, they're all different kinds of slaves. It's here in America, we have the Constitution and all of that. So, and then we have the Civil Rights Movement. So it makes sense that you could have a narrative of oppression, for black people here in America. I mean, you could say that for Chinese workers in the West, and you could say that about Irish people as well. But the culture is obsessed, with racism on black people. So that makes sense to me. It's a stupid mentality to me. I hate thinking of myself as a victim, so I can never identify with it. But it makes sense, you know. But with women, on the other hand, I mean, if you look at history, you can notice that there have been plenty of times where just our entire culture has just been pretty terrible, like for men and women. But it's never just only been women. If you look at even I just off the top of my head, I think about ancient Sparta. You had boys, right, will be taken from their homes and they'd have to spend their entire lives, working and getting beaten and all of that to become soldiers to go fight in all these different wars, right? But a lot of women never really had to deal with stuff like that. I think it is, you could always say that in warfare, like in ancient warfare, women were raped, yeah, but men were just straight up killed. So even then, women still weren't special in that regard. Human history has been pretty terrible for people in general. So it's always really confused me how you can take an objective look at how human beings are treated in general, and you can come out with the conclusion that women are oppressed, and even now in our Western society are still oppressed by any measure of the word. You know what I mean?
Well, it's usually about twisting things just to suit your idea. Like if you look at the top earners in the world, it usually is men. So then they twist that into a negative thing that the men are in the control, that the men have the power. So then they start using subtle things that aren't actually bad, but they start twisting them to look a certain way so then people think that way.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. A lot of manipulation going on, even in the mainstream media and whatnot, and in mainstream culture. But I don't know. I guess it just really bothers me, the lack of critical thought that kind of goes into even in history. Like I said, I mean, I was taught the same thing everyone else was taught, and even just independent, even before independent research into history, I could still see, that human history has been pretty shitty for everyone in general. I can never come out with the conclusion that only women have been treated badly, because it's just not true. It's the opposite of literal reality.
Well, it also depends on how they try and view it themselves. Like if they try and view it from their own point of view that all these bad things are happening to me while all the men around me are having good things, then it's the same thing. Like when you go on to racism, if a lot of black people are surrounded by a few rich white people, then they're going to think, oh, the white people have it all good, the black people have it all bad. And it can stem in a bunch of different ways depending on where you are in the world as well. Like in a lot of places, women are treated as highly, and some places they're treated basically as a be all end all. Like in Saudi Arabia, people don't treat women as great as they do here, but it's a completely different culture with completely different experiences. So I think it all depends. Because also it's like simple things. Like if you have a bunch of poor people, you're more likely just gonna have people robbing each other because no one has any money. Well, people here probably either want something or they're just bored, so they try and make up something to have a problem with.
All right.
Well, if you think also about just how I told you before in my own life, how many women have been sleeping around with a bunch of people. Like if they go and do that, and then one of them ends up getting assaulted or raped, then they're not going to try and blame themselves because then they won't be able to cope with it.
Yeah, even with some of the rape victims, I can understand that mindset of rape culture and whatnot. But even then, one thing that's always bothered me about some of the feminists, especially when they talk about how the police force doesn't care about rape victims, is what exactly do they expect these women to do about it? If they can't go to the police, or if they can't go talk to someone about it. You know what I mean?
That's what I said before about thinking at the end and not the beginning. They keep on thinking about a problem, but they never think about it from a logical step all the way to the end. So they end up thinking we got to stop rape, but then they discount all the ways that you can stop it. Anyone says self-defense, oh, you're a victim blamer. Someone says go to the police, oh, the police won't help. So then what do you expect them to do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so it gets to a point where you kind of have to acknowledge that feminists, they're not trying to stop anything. And one thing that oftentimes gets me is when people try to criticize me or insult me for telling women to learn some basic, self-defense, or to learn, something that might help you, avoid, getting attacked and whatnot.
Yeah, and the other thing that they also don't seem to get is that by mitigating your chances, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away. By locking your door, you could still be robbed. By learning self-defense or carrying a gun, you could still be attacked and killed or raped or anything. It just makes it less likely.
Yeah, precisely. And it seems these people, like you say, are thinking at the end that they can completely eradicate these individuals from our population, which is impossible. I mean, you can't just, yeah, I mean, first of all, you can't even locate a lot of these people until they strike. You can't punish people for things they haven't done yet. And they just think that I don't even know. Again, I've never heard any feminist solution other than teach boys not to rape for ending rape. I mean, aside from that, they've got nothing to end these problems, except apparently you don't go to police and you don't learn how to fight. You just have to teach boys not to rape and just, hope for the fucking best, apparently. You're right?
Yeah, but it's just like serial killers. Most of them are either caught just because of a fluke or because they overextended themselves way too far and got caught. Like when you're dealing with crimes where it's not linked to anything, it's a lot harder to deal with it. Like a serial killer could pick any woman in the city, let's say, if it was someone like the Yorkshire Ripper, he just killed any women. So you got every woman in the city that you got to try to protect. Well, who do you link them all to? There will be no real suspects, so the only way they get caught is by accident. And the rape's the exact same thing. Yeah, they have to go to police if you know them, or you have to hope that the DNA comes up with something, or you have to at least tell someone. But even then, you can't stop someone from becoming like a killer or a rapist if you don't even know that they exist.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point too. If no woman or any man for that matter never brings it up or never tells anyone, there's no hope for catching this guy, and so the problem just continues to exacerbate. And I don't ever really mean to sound callous about it, and I understand that it's a difficult subject to tackle, but it's I think it's the only solution we really have right now is you either have to go to police or you have to learn how to defend yourself because you can't catch these people before they do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the other bad thing is that they keep on thinking that there almost has to be this nice, fluffy, easy way of doing about it. But when you come to crimes like rape and stuff, there just isn't an easy way to do it. Because if you don't tell the policeman or policewoman what happened, how they did it, what they looked like, what you tried to do, like basically reenact the whole thing, then how are they going to know what happened and how are they going to know how to solve it? Or maybe if you tell them this person wore a certain jacket or was at a certain bar and they did this and that to you, then they have someone else in their database and they go find him because there's three people that ended up having the same incident.
Like, yeah, exactly. All right, so your turn now. What's the next topic?
Well, a good one I think would be, what do you think about sexual education in schools between any age from year where I am? They're trying to teach about transgenderism, gay gay relationships, and a few other things by as young as 6 years old now.
Wow, I think maybe that's a little way too young to chat with kids about sex.
Just a bit.
Yeah, 6 years old. I don't know. Why? Is there any reason why they would do it at 6 years old?
I don't remember the story. I'd have to go read it again. But I think the whole point is to try and push the idea that if you're transgender, even at a very young age, or if you're gay at a young age, and you don't have to almost feel bad about it or be aware of what it could be and that other people might. It's like when they did that purple penguin thing way back when, and they wanted to almost be gender neutral because you don't want to try and offend anyone that's almost like they're trying to push the idea that you can be transgender at this young age and other people might not know because you don't say, kind of thing, I think. But it doesn't make much sense to me, honestly. Especially when you're 6, I don't think that's going to be the first thought in your head.
No, man. Like when you're 6, you're probably thinking about tag. I don't really think most kids don't have the existential crisis of whether or not I'm a boy or a girl. I think the only time most kids really even think about that is when they have to go to the bathroom, So I don't really think that'd be real conducive to their health if you try to tell them they might be the wrong. I don't even think they'd be able to even conceptualize that until around the time they hit puberty. I mean, yeah, they would think girls are icky or girls are different at the very least, but to think that complexly, I don't really think a 6-year-old would really be able to think about the topic that hard. I mean, these kids are still trying to learn like how to multiply. It's now you're introducing them to the topic of gender politics. I mean, like we're adults and it's still a hard topic to cover, and you're trying to teach a 6-year-old that. I don't know. It does kind of sound a little bit like social engineering to me. It doesn't really sound like they're actually trying to educate these kids on much anything.
Yeah, that was another thing is that I think, I forget what it's called, but there's a reality show now where I think she's either like 12 or 14 or something around that age. And what they did to her is she's a male to female transgender at this young age. And they put hormone blockers at before they hit puberty so that they won't hit puberty naturally. So then they could do whatever. But that just sounds very dangerous, don't you think? Like they're blocking the natural testosterone that would go in, and the ability to how your voice would go lower, because they don't want a woman with a lower voice, so it would sound much higher. Like their voice wouldn't change and all these other things.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I agree. It doesn't really sound like a very good idea to me to introduce these type of different hormone blockers and whatnot. I mean, an adult's an adult, and they can do however they feel, but I don't really think those are kind of decisions that 13-year-olds should make at this point because, I mean, 13-year-olds aren't the best decision makers in the world, honestly. They're adults now who are still aren't that intelligent, can't make reasonable decisions with like money they can make. I mean, when you look at stuff like that, I I can't co-sign something like that to give a 13-year-old or 12-year-old hormone blockers or to give them any surgery since that's the point where their body's going to start developing anyway. I think until their body starts to develop naturally, we'll see what happens before you do any sort of changes to it because, I mean, what happens when they're 20 and they start thinking back, maybe I shouldn't have taken those hormone blockers because I was wrong, or maybe they want to be different or something like that. So,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues is that a lot of these things I think have to be done before puberty or around that age, because by the time you've done that, then all of a sudden you've got all your male genetics in you, and you're going to have to change them somehow, like how they do hormone replacement therapy instead of the hormone blockers. So then you're going to have to undo all that, and then you change it. So some people, their body shrinks, they lose height, and all these kind of things. At the same time, you're trying to almost change the life of someone who's not really, well, not at the age of consent for one, because it's usually 18 to 21. But when you're 13, that's like the age that you start to hit puberty, and that's the age that they need to start doing it, or they have to do something else in the future. So I think that's the reason why they do it. But the main issue is that most people are going to either regret it or the risk usually outweighs the reward. Of thing like the people who go through it from 13 and they end up fine when they're 21 or whatever, and they love it and they're happy with themselves because they had an issue, it seems fine. But the people it affects and it's negative, they're basically screwed because you can't change yourself back after that. Once you've gone from a man to a woman, you're kind of stuck. You've gone through a bunch of things and you're going to have to either go through it all again to go right back to being a man, or you're kind of stuck.
yeah, exactly. It seems way too rash of a decision to make when you're 13 or 14. It doesn't really sound like a lot of complex thought went into that.
I get the reason, but I just don't think it's worth it in the end. Like the other bad thing
Yeah, me
is,
neither.
the other bad thing is that you got everyone and their dog now wants to be something special, whether it's pansexual or transgender or transvestite. Well, you got a bunch of people that actually have conditions where they literally think they shouldn't belong in this body, like they're disgusted by themselves. They hate their genitalia, they hate the fact that they're born a certain way, and those people need the help, but they're swarmed by a bunch of other people who are kind of, they're experimenting, they're not sure, and it ends up almost relegating them to the side where the real issue is, where the people that need the help, because they have an actual either illness or disorder, and then you have the people who are experimenting, and it kind of gets distorted between the two at times.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I mean, I agree with you. I don't really think that's the hormone therapy is the best thing for 13 to 12-year-old kids. Because I mean, one ultimate question kind of always have to wonder is it, how exactly do they know that there's a problem? You know what I mean? And how do we know that they aren't dealing with an issue or if they're actually like born in the wrong body? And I think the effects are way too not harsh, but I can't use harsh, but I may be effective, and so much so that, like we said earlier, it can't really be reversed. So I find it to be way too rash of a decision to make. I don't really think a 13-year-old can really think that hard about their life in the future and say, yeah, this is the best decision to make for me. Especially since they don't really understand what kind of changes they'll go through in puberty anyway, you know, because like when I was 13, I didn't really understand what was going to happen to me. Like I read a booklet about it, yeah, but it wasn't until I actually, you know, started getting taller and my voice was cracking that I really understand what was going on. So I mean, these kids, I mean, they're 12, they don't really know how their body's going to react to anything. They don't really know what's going to happen. And you know, unless you actually give them some time to grow into their bodies, you know, or give them time to really understand, I guess, the differences between men and women. Because I mean, again, up until puberty, there aren't really very many differences between boys and girls, or at least like the way they look, aside from some girls usually let their hair grow out and boys usually cut their hair shorter. But I mean, for the most part, a prepubescent body isn't all that different until puberty. So I mean, these 13, they're not really going to understand, you know, what the differences are between men and women at that age. So to introduce them to hormone therapy right around the time and block their natural functions, I don't really think it's worth it. I also don't, I mean, even then, it still doesn't sound like a good idea to block their natural functions. I mean, if you have to go through artificial means to feel good in your body, I think that really speaks to the problem itself, doesn't it?
Well, it depends. It goes back to splitting them into two groups. There's the one kind of group who actually has an issue with their body and they hate it because they're born whatever way, and either that can be changed eventually or it can't. It all depends on the therapy they go through and all that kind of thing. That's one group. Then the other group is the people who are more so what you call experimenting, or they don't know if they want to be a man or if they want to be a woman, or if they actually are born in their own body. Like the whole issue with a bunch of issues in general is that you always have people that need something and people that either want or lost something. Like you'll have people in countries that need rights, which goes back to feminism and how they try and justify it over there. And you have people that just kind of want things. Like they just kind of, oh, why not have free tampons and that? While someone else is like, okay, can I like not be killed for being gay or something? And it just splits up into those two parts. When you get onto the whole transgender thing, it goes to do they actually need the help or do they even know what they're doing? Like a bunch of people probably don't even know what they're going to go through for puberty when they're like 6, 7, all the way to even 10 or 12. Like I went from about 4'8" to about 6 foot in about a year and a half. Like it's a huge difference. And if let's say I
Yes.
took hormone blockers and that stopped my growing, well, that's a big difference in a person. Like you might go from anywhere from height change to um, voice change to anything, but it also might change things that you can't ever reverse. Like you might, like if you're a woman that decides you want to be a man and you take hormone blockers, well, now so you can't ever get pregnant because you don't go through it. Like you don't go through your hormones and you don't activate in time or whatever, so you also can't do that. Or there are a bunch of things that could happen negatively, which I don't think people think about on the big scale.
Yeah, exactly. So I completely agree with you on that one. I don't think, yeah, younger children should be messing with that until they've gotten older or really understand what they're doing. Going back to the 6-year-olds learning about sex and whatnot, I don't know. That just kind of sounds like social engineering to me. Because I didn't learn about sex until I was like 13, actually, like in the 8th grade. And even then, they really kind of taught me about the function of between men and women, how pregnancy occurs, and you know how to avoid STDs and everything. So you know, for me personally, and I know a lot of people, you know, all over the United States get some really shitty sex advice. Well, not sex advice, but like sex education. But I did. I was pretty much taught everything about sex, how it works, different STDs, condoms, birth control, and all of that. And so, to that, yeah, I think you should teach kids how sex works, but I don't think you should teach children, like young 6 and 7-year-olds, what that's about. I don't really think they could understand that concept at that young age because, you know, they're probably not really thinking about stuff like that. Especially, again, like I said, when you're trying to teach them other basic read and write and whatnot, I don't really think introducing the topic of sex to children is really the best thing to do because I don't think they can conceptualize it correctly and really understand what its purpose is, what it's about, and when and where to do it, you know?
Yeah, here's a question for you. Do you think as sexual education increases and goes to younger ages that the general population is sex at a younger age and you get more teenage pregnancies, or do you think it goes the opposite way?
Um, I don't know. I would have to look into it, but well, I mean, just from what I can see now, it doesn't look like it's changing much of anything. Um, it still looks like there are a bunch of people getting pregnant out of wedlock, a bunch of people getting pregnant at younger ages, like teenage pregnancy still going on. Um, but that could be an effect of what I was saying earlier, with some people have gotten really terrible sex education, or I don't know. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends how you approach sex ed. Like, even simple wording such as masturbation is good, don't feel guilty about it, as opposed to masturbation and this is how you do it, can be totally different things. One tries to teach you how to do it, one teaches you almost your morals and how you should do it. Like, if you go and teach people that sex is just natural and fun and pleasurable, then you're setting them up so that they might think, oh, it's just no big deal. I could do this whenever I want. But if you teach them how to do it and you don't teach a moral side of it, then they could just say, oh, this is how I do it. Now what do I do with it? Like, it depends on how you raise someone in a way.
No, yeah, I can see that. Um, I think a lot of people, I think even some of the comment sections and some of the videos I make and other videos, a lot of people aren't really thinking about the procreation side of sexual activity, and they don't really, think about the fact that another human being can be created from this union. And I think it's a very funny and interesting thing to me. I don't really care what people do with sex lives. I just think they should think about it at the very least. But the fact that I have to argue with people about the fact that for millions of years we were reproducing, we were having sex to reproduce, to create other human beings. Even with contraceptives now, we still have to acknowledge that very real possibility. I mean, what are your thoughts on the fact that so many people don't even think about that concept anymore?
Uh, well, a lot of people don't even want kids anymore. It depends. Like, a lot of people I know either want to adopt or they just don't want any. So it depends on where you are, I guess. But I think it depends on how you taught things work. Like, if you taught sex is a fun thing that you just do, then people aren't going to really think as much about that other side. But if you taught then it's only for reproduction, then people aren't going to see the other side either. Like, it's almost a view thing, like how you view it yourself.
Yeah, you have a point there, because people then, if people only think about reproducing, then they won't think about the intimacy aspect. So you are right there. If they're not taught the whole view of sex, then they can only look at it from a skewed view on either side. So yeah, that's an interesting thought.
And the other bad thing about nowadays is that almost as you've gotten more options, like you've gotten condoms and you've gotten abortions, that people don't almost think about it as much. It's just like, oh, well, if the condom fails, I can just go do this. Or if I get
Yeah,
pregnant
that's
anyway, I
true.
could just go get the pill or I could just go get an
All right,
abortion.
so
They almost don't think about it.
yeah, so going on that topic, have you heard of antinatalism?
Never heard of it.
Well, I don't want to misrepresent anyone who's an antinatalist, so I'll try to recite this as best as I can, or maybe I can go find a definition on Google. Give me a second.
Oh, yeah, because Google's been so good to me today.
Oh man, this is your first Google Hangout. You have no idea how difficult Google is
Oh, I
to
know.
operate.
When I first switched to the Gmail account, I had to spend almost 3 days just to make it work properly because it kept pissing me off because it wouldn't. First, it wouldn't create the account I wanted. Then it wouldn't let me use the name I wanted because it said I had to use my real name. So I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. They make such a simple thing so annoying at times.
No, I'm with you. I'm not really even sure Google even has a social network, to be completely honest. I do wonder, who they were sitting at Google office and they were like, you know what? Let's just make a social website. What about Facebook? Man, fuck Facebook. Let's, I mean, I don't really understand why they even forced Google Plus on us or anything like that.
They
It's not
probably
really even all
forced
that.
they probably forced Google Plus accounts just to make it look on the books that they will get more popularity and more accounts, even though in the end they weren't. It's one of the
Yeah,
easiest
no one.
tricks in the
Yeah,
world.
exactly. No one moved to Google Plus. Man, I made a Google Plus account thinking my friends were gonna move there. No one came. I just have a Google Plus account for no reason. But yeah. So I have a short definition. Antinatalism is a philosophical position that assigns a negative value to birth, standing in opposition to natalism. So I guess natalism is reproduction. So so basically, from what I've heard, I've only met a couple of antinatalists actually. Is that they think that childbirth is inherently immoral because you're forcing life upon another human being, and hopefully I'm not bastardizing that position. Um, but from what I can gather, that's pretty much what it is. They are against having children because they view it as morally wrong.
But if that happened, then they wouldn't exist.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's the obvious thing. If their mothers weren't as immoral as they are, and I know I'm making fun of them. I mean, I make fun of everybody, so they're not special. But if their mom wasn't the evil bastard that she was, they wouldn't exist. Um, but no, it's an interesting mindset to me. I don't really understand how they got to that, to saying that childbirth is inherently immoral. Because you're forcing life. I mean, there's no real way out or around that. I mean, yeah, I guess you are forcing life upon another human being, but you kind of have to in order to reproduce. I mean, no one says that a lion is immoral because they reproduce with multiple other lionesses. I mean, morality is only something that can really exist with human beings anyway, because we can even think about whether something's wrong or right. But to say that that natural process is wrong, I don't know. It's a strange thought to me. Like I said, I haven't gotten to chat with very many of them, so that's why I was wondering what your opinion was about it.
I think I can kind of see what they mean. Like, if you give birth to someone and they end up living their life as a living hell, or they end up becoming like most of their life is bad and then they end up hurting other people, that makes sense. Or if you look at population and you say, oh, well, the world is overpopulated, so we shouldn't reproduce as much. But in general, it just doesn't make sense because it assumes that that person's life's going to be better. It doesn't. It almost doesn't see the positives, I guess. Like, you could go through life and have the best life ever, and why would you not want that? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. You do have a point there. Life is usually decided by the individual who's living it. I mean, you could be Kim Kardashian, who gets paid for just showing your butt, and that's a pretty easy and smooth life right there. Except Kim Kardashian kind of makes her life miserable if you watch her show, which I stopped. I only think I only saw an episode because it was boring as all hell. But I mean, they're miserable people, the Kardashians are, and if they just learn how to relax, like they're living on easy street. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
and
it
then she's
depends.
married to Kanye.
Well, it depends for
Well, I mean, like
reality
in terms of
TV. Like the
yeah,
issue with
yeah,
reality.
well, I mean,
Oh, you go first.
go ahead.
Okay, the
Well, what I
issue.
was going to say was, okay, go
No,
ahead.
the issue with reality TV though is that at times it's very scripted. Like, it might look bad, but it might just be acting just to get the ratings up. But even then, a lot of times, even if you do get born into a bad family, you can at least try to get out, or you can at least try to do something yourself. Like, assuming that someone's gonna be having a horrible life, or that they're gonna wish they weren't born just for everyone, is kind of a negative thing, and it just doesn't make sense in the grand picture. I think it would make sense if
Yeah,
you were born in like a third world country or somewhere where there would be children soldiers by the time they were 7, or they would get raped by the time they were like 8 or 9. Like that kind of
Yeah,
thing
but
makes sense. But in general, just no.
ironically, they have more children actually. Like they
Yeah,
reproduce a
no.
lot more often.
That's the one
It's
weird
I've only go ahead.
That's the one weird thing is that usually the lower you go, like the poorer people are and the less they have, the more kids they seem to have, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like the most wealthy and well-off people. I've actually noticed like a lot of wealthy people or actors will adopt, which is a really interesting thing to me. They're not really reproducing, even though they're in a great state financially and they could take care of their kids. Not all of them choose to reproduce. They choose to adopt and take kids from Africa or other countries and whatnot. Um, Yeah, it's I don't know, antinatalism. It's an interesting thought. I'm not so quick to dismiss these people offhand, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't completely understand their entire mindset with it.
I think one of the reasons that rich people have less kids is because you don't have the time, or you won't have the energy, or you'd think, oh, well, now I gotta now pay for a nanny because I'd never be there, or someone would have to stay home and you'd lose money, and that's the kind of mindset that they live in. Well,
Yeah,
that
but
would make
I'm
sense.
talking. Some of them still adopt, though, is what I'm saying. The people who have like no children at all, I got that. But I mean, the ones who choose to adopt children like from Africa or from somewhere else instead of reproducing or propagating their own genetics.
Yeah, and that could also just be a publicity stunt. It always depends. Like, there's multiple sides to every issue. Like, you could be adopting just because a kid doesn't have a home and you want to help them out, or they could just be a publicity stunt. Hey, we're two white people raising a black kid. We're racially this. We're upstanding citizens. We're trying to do
Yeah,
this like
we're not
everyone.
racist. We
Yeah,
are not racist.
yeah, we are not racist because we have a black kid.
We are the least not racist people around.
Uh, I
Of
don't
all
know.
the
It always
racists, we're
depends.
not racist. But no, yeah, I see what you're saying. Definitely, and I've had my thoughts about that too. The people who will adopt black African babies and just so they look like they're not bad people. Which I mean, it's a really messed up mindset. I only have this child, so people will think higher of me. You don't really care about investing in that kid's life, then the return value you get. And I've noticed some people have kind of look at children that way. I know back in the day when I used to watch Dr. Phil a lot, there'd be a couple of episodes where these teen girls would get on and they'd be pregnant just because they wanted someone to love them, just because they were narcissistic and they didn't have any, or they didn't think anyone cared about them. And you're just kind of creating life just with the predestiny to love you. You're just having another person as an accessory, really. And, you're not really there to invest in their life and make their life better. You have them to fill in a narcissistic void in your heart. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You
that
know,
is right. Just
I
like throwing it.
yeah, I think if exactly like if there's any form of objectification, I think that would be it. To truly reduce them into a thing that just makes your life better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, people do it all the time. They just don't really think about it or they don't know it. I, a lot of people do it without knowing it or they don't think it's wrong or they just aren't thinking the whole way through. Like, if they're like 16, they're probably thinking, okay, no one loves me. What could I do to make people love me? Or I could have a kid and they'll love me back because they have to love me. They're my kid. So then they'll go through that way. And the other bad thing about that is then it leads to them just dating someone, dumping them up, and now you got a dad that will never see the kid, or she's going to be tied to that dad for however many years.
Yeah, true that. True that.
Okay, your turn for a topic.
All right. So one thing that's been bothering me for the past couple of hours, literally, I've just been thinking I want to bounce off of you is the other day, Anita Sarkeesian came out with her new video on women as rewards, and Sargon Abakad, and who else was there? I know Sean Hitter was there, Armored Skeptic was there. Who else was there? Someone else was there, but basically they had their live stream, and they were talking about Anita's video. And throughout the live stream, I kind of noticed a lot more of the commentary was more vicious mocking on Anita than it was like responding to her. And I guess a part of me kind of had a what's the word I'm looking for, like an out of body experience. And I was sitting here thinking, I mean, is this what I do? Like is this what I sound like to people? Do I just kind of viciously mock other feminists online? I mean, because when I think about myself, I always try to put in a higher point to my videos. I mean, I know I make fun of people until the sun comes down because it's a funny thing.
Oh,
But it just started making me. It started making me think. If Anita really had like a leg to stand on, because I know people do like send Anita like tweets, like really terrible stuff, which I think is the stupidest thing ever to propagate Anita's victimhood mentality. You would think that people would stop being Anita mean things, to just so she wouldn't have a leg to stand on. But for some odd reason, they still do it. I don't know what that's all about. But going back to the live stream, like I said, most of it kind of just seemed like they were just viciously mocking Anita than they were responding to her. And they did respond to her points. I'm not here to say that it was only them making fun of her, but I'd say about a good 85% of it was just them making fun of it instead of them actually like responding to her points. And it started making me think, what if I'm becoming that individual who just makes fun of people without having something important to say? And I don't really want to be like that. So I mean, like, what are your thoughts on this, on just becoming pretty much our enemies? I think that's really what it comes down to, becoming the social justice warriors and feminists we're supposed to fight against.
well, it depends on if you get obsessed or not. Like, the issue with a lot of people, especially on YouTube, is that they pick a topic and they stick on the topic for as long as they can. Like, how many videos does Thunderfoot have now and Anita about the exact same things over and over and over again? And it's, in the end, almost no different than what feminism does about patriarchy. They say the same thing over and over and over again. Even if you're right, just saying the same thing 20, 30 times isn't going to change anything. Like, the video's there, link it, doing it over and over again, and getting almost snarky each time isn't going to help you. Like, the main thing you get to have is that whenever you make a comment against someone, you always have to have a point in there. Like, when we did the video on the rape with Lacey Green and false rape victims, is that I said,
Yeah, dude.
something along the lines of, yeah, of course we'll just believe everyone because they said that he should be in jail. Well, I say, me and my 99 friends say that you should be in jail, Lacey. Goodbye. And it has a point in it, like, you don't just believe people just because they say it, but at the same time, it is kind of snarky. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to put someone down. It's supposed to make them think you got to think about what you're saying. Almost a
Yeah,
funny way.
exactly. And that's the style I would want to primarily more be like. But I want to kind of stay away from just viciously mocking people. I think a lot of self-criticism here. I'm just kind of talking about myself, but it made me think about that. The fact that like even with like going back with Thunderfoot, Thunderfoot pretty much made his name just making fun of creationists. And it's not a hard thing to do. I can make fun of a creationist 6 ways to Sunday. It's not difficult. It's not really like they have the greatest arguments in the world. So I mean, it kind of wonders. I mean, what are we trying to obtain? I was kind of watching that live stream, and I was like, well, what's the ultimate point? Um, how are we helping anyone with this problem of feminism? Because one goal I want is I don't want men and women to hate each other anymore. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of animosity build up between men and women as each day passes, and that's not what I would like to see. And of course, I'm just one person, but that's my goal. I would want more women and more men to want to come together again and try to work together to make society better. But if we're only just mocking feminism, if we're only just making fun of it, well, what are we doing to fix the problem that feminism's causing? To fix the rift that has split the genders. You know, and so I don't know. It just started making me kind of think about where I stand with some of the videos that I make.
Well, not that, but everyone else who isn't you. Like, some people just, like I've said before, do you just probably do it for the money or the recognition or the popularity, or just to have some kind of outlet. Like, if you end up doing a video about feminism for so long, you can only get so much material before it runs out. And to keep on gaining viewers, you're eventually going to have to find something really good, or you're going to have to dumb it down. Like, a lot of people watch videos just because they're anti-feminism or they're anti-Lacey. Like, you could put a Lacey video up that speaks out against her and say nothing but you're an idiot for 10 minutes and still get a few 100,000 viewers if you were sold by the right person. Like, what was his, TLD? Made a video on Lacey Green, his first video, and it made way more views than any other of his videos. It made, I think, either 200 or 300,000, something like that, and that's just a huge amount compared to what all his other videos slowly got after. Like, when you pick a topic, it depends on what you're doing it for. Like, some people might just be doing it just to be mean or snide. Like, they might just think, oh, Lacey's an absolute idiot. I'm just going to make fun of her as much as I can. And everyone that then hates Lacey just jumps on the bandwagon and away they go. Like, the only thing you have to worry about if you're worrying about yourself is if you want to help people, always make sure you have a point in everything you say. Like, don't just say you're an idiot. Say you're an idiot because you didn't think this through from beginning to end. You should have thought about this. You should have thought about that. And that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. It's just I've been thinking a little bit about some of the extremists on either side too. Um, not just on the feminist side, like they want to kill all men, but even some like I said, the real misogynists who are coming up in the world around us. And I'm not talking about the the bullshit feminists will say to shut you up. I'm talking about the guys who really do like hate women.
Who
You know,
think
who
all
really
women
don't
are
want to
evil
have,
and such.
huh?
Who think like, oh, women are evil and such.
Yeah, exactly. I know the other day, I sent you this one video, and I think you only watched the beginning, where this guy was saying that women are inherently evil. You know,
Oh, I could
that
have.
kind of extremism. You know, that kind of level of crazy bullshit. I think. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, certainly, like, there's no way around the fact that there are some terrible women in the world, or terrible people in general. But to say that by virtue of her having a vagina is evil, I don't know, it's craziness to me. I think kind of really speaks to the state our society is in right now, that so many men have gotten to that level of extremism, you know?
Yeah, it's the exact opposite. If you're white, you're evil. You have a penis, you're evil. Now you got people saying you have a vagina, you're evil. Like, I think the main reason one of it is almost a reaction. Is like, okay, you said I'm evil for this long. Well, now I'm gonna fight back and I'm gonna shout at you because I got nothing left. Like, a lot of people probably just. Oh, it goes back to why feminism became so popular. A lot of people probably did have issues, but then they went about it the wrong way, I think. Like, in this, a lot of men probably do have bad divorces where the wife just used them or they never see their kids and they're angry for that reason. So they almost vent out that way. And they're so blinded by their anger that they can't see that they're doing exactly what the other side's saying they do. They're saying they hate women, that all women are evil, that there's no point being with a woman, that she'll just cheat you over, that she'll basically do anything bad to you. And I think I understand why they do it, but like you said, it's the exact opposite of what. Well, it's the same thing, but the opposite gender. Instead of saying all men are evil, it's saying all women are evil.
Yeah, exactly. You know, on this level of extremism that's risen up on both sides. You know, and like I said, I mean, like I've said before, I can understand it. It's not that it came out of nowhere. It's just that it isn't better. You know, it's not really helping the problem out when you get to that level of anger and frustration. Really, you can't really beat your adversaries or change anybody's mind, because you're exactly what they said you were. You know, you are an angry misogynist who, I guess, wants to make the world go back to whatever. I mean, first of all, it really really doesn't make any sense, that kind of criticism of making the world regress, because, I mean, women weren't always treated badly anyway. So, I mean, even if you took it back to the past, women were still treated fairly well here in the Western world. But that's the side issue. The point is, you know, you've pretty much become the misogynist they said you were. And I think it kind of prevents us from fixing the problem, I think, or dealing with the issues that we have to face when you have, like with the feminists, I think a lot of them aren't very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going to say knowledgeable. It's almost like they don't know that there's a whole bunch of men they could actually point to and say, hey, look, here are some real guys who are misogynistic. Like, they'll point to MRAs, but MRAs aren't, well, in general, at least, I haven't met very many who are misogynistic or mean people at all. Some people say they have. I know you said you've seen some. I haven't seen any. But there are some real men, you know, in different corners of the internet who really do despise women that feminists can point to that we'll have to deal with now if we want to fix the problem. And I don't really think it, again, like I said, it's not conducive to much of anything. Like, I understand the anger, but it doesn't help is what I'm saying.
Well, the issue for them isn't so much that they can't point out to a misogynist, it's that whenever they point out to one, they can't make it someone that they can associate with anyone. Like, they tried to make Elliot Rodger out to be an MRA because they hate the MRAs. Well, you can't do that, because then everyone then discredits it and pushes themselves away from it. Whenever you have a feminist do something completely crazy, they don't push them away from it. They almost accept them in or say, it's not real feminism, or they don't represent me, but they still say that they're a feminist. So either way, you're screwed. But going back to the issue with the men reacting to the women with that anger, is that feminism started out the exact same way, is that instead of changing something to be fair and equal, they changed it to suit them. Like way back when in the 1800s, where if you got divorced, a man got the children no matter what. They didn't change it to either person can get the children depending on what they want. They changed it to, okay, at this age set, I want the children. So all of a sudden, between the ages of, basically born and 4 years old, the woman would always get the children. That isn't equal or fair. That's all of a sudden now the complete opposite. You've gone from men always getting the children to now women get the children in its case. You didn't almost change anything to make it fair and equal to each other. You just changed it so that you could benefit from it. And that's one danger that could end up happening, is that, yes, you're angry. Yes, all these people did bad to you, but not everyone did bad to you. Like, you can't end up blaming every woman for what some women did to you. Same as you can't change the laws so that everyone suffers because a few people benefited.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. So, what's the next topic? Your turn. What's the next topic?
That's a good one. What do you think about the morals of suicide? Do you think it's that you should be able to kill yourself at a certain point, or do you think there should be some requirements that you just think no one should ever do it?
Well, personally, I could say I don't think anyone should do it. And I don't really think it should be encouraged either. That said, are you asking should there be legal repercussions for attempting suicide? Because, I mean,
No,
you would think the
just as a
person's
moral
life sucks
standpoint.
enough.
No, just as a moral standpoint, like, you shouldn't do this, or you should do this, or you should consider it.
No, go ahead.
Like, think of a situation like if someone was in an abusive relationship and they couldn't get away for whatever reason, they had no family contacts, they had no way out, they had no money, they had no car, they were living alone basically in the middle of nowhere with no cities around, and they had a chance to either kill themselves or keep on going through life. Which would you pick, kind of thing?
Well, I don't know. In that scenario, you'd think you just kill the person abusing you. Very morbid, yes. But I guess to stay on topic, no, I don't think I could ever tell someone that it's a good idea to kill themselves. It's personally something I would tell people to stay away from. I don't think it's ever a good idea. Particularly because I think, like we said earlier in the conversation, life's pretty much what you make it. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere getting abused, there's a couple of options out of that situation, unless you're chained to a desk. You know, like if you're Courage the Cowardly Dog, you know, out in the middle of nowhere, you know, no one can hear the person scream as you beat the dog shit out of them and escape. So there's an option. You know, there's always something you can do, even in such a dire situation like that. Um, but if we were to dial it back from something so extreme as out in the middle of nowhere with someone abusive to, say, I don't know, like Amanda Todd, you know, first person that came to my mind. I don't think she should have killed herself. I personally, I think she should have just kind of wrote it out, and eventually people would have forgotten about it. I don't think anyone would have cared all that much. That's the interesting thing, pretty much about nude leaks. When it comes with ladies, I notice women take it really hard when naked pictures of them come out, and they even contemplate suicide because so many people are talking about them. But eventually, if you just ride the storm out, you know, no one's going to care anymore, and no one's really going to think about it all that much. For example, there's what's her name? Angie Verona was a girl. I think she was like 14 when some racy pictures of her came out, and she said for a period of her life she thought about suicide and killing herself, and eventually she rode the storm out. And ironically, she ended up posting her own, you know, revealing pictures on Instagram for herself, because I guess at that point she didn't give a damn anymore. But she's just an example of someone who had something negative happen to her. She wrote it out, and then no one hardly even chats about Angie Verona all that much anymore. So I guess my final answer would be no. I think if you work, I think life can always get better if you work at it and try to change your perspective. I don't really think it's something I could ever encourage someone to do.
I think mostly it depends. Like, the only time I'd ever think about it is if you have an illness where you basically can never get better and it's only going to get worse for a very long period of time.
Yeah,
And
isn't that
you're,
called euthanasia?
yeah, I think it's legal in some places, not legal in others. But that's the only type that I can think of that would almost make sense to do, because otherwise you can change your situations from one phase to another. Like, your life can change from today to tomorrow. Like, today you could be skin broke, and then 2 years down the road you could be earning $1 million a year. Like, it isn't probably going to happen. It might not happen, but you never know what could happen. You might think that no one loves you for the first 12 years of your life, or the first 20, or the first 30, and now so you meet someone and you end up having 3 kids and you end up having a great happy life. Like, you can't always predict the future.
Yeah, exactly. So for euthanasia, I can understand an argument for that. I mean, especially the person with terminal illness. I think if anything, just like let it ride out unless you're in physical pain. Then I could understand a desire for that. But if you're gonna die, if your body's already given out, you just may as well just let it give out. I don't think there's any reason to keep the person on life support if they want to die, especially if they're an older person too. Like in your 60s or 70s, I think you've pretty much lived your life then. There ain't much you can do. So I guess,
Well,
yeah, I guess you should let your body take its course.
not only that, but you don't want to end up being in a bed for 2 years in pain, almost waiting for the end. Especially if you
Yeah,
don't have
exactly.
any family or anything. That could be even worse.
Yeah, I know, right? You know, you're being 78-year-old person just sitting there on life support talking to yourself. I think at that point, take the person off life support and just let their body, you know, make it as painless as possible. And that wouldn't even be assisted suicide. That'd just be your body taking its natural course. I mean, we're all gonna die eventually, you know. I don't really think if the person wants to die, like I say, just let its body run its course. I don't think you should have to assist them or, you know, kill them or snap their neck or anything like that. Because I mean, you know, even then, it isn't. It's an interesting topic, euthanasia. Because I know, what was that movie, Old Yeller, when
Never
the guy
seen it.
had to kill his dog. You've never seen Old Yeller? Well, spoiler. I think the dog gets rabies, and the boy has to get a rifle, and he has to shoot the dog, and he has to kill it. You know, because at that point they couldn't fix it. They didn't have any vaccination for rabies, and so the dog was just going to be wild for the rest of his life until his brain got eaten up. So they mercy killed it, you know. And I think there's certain situations like that where someone's in just a great degree of pain and everything's going black, where you just kind of have to help them out, you know, get to their death quicker. But aside from situations like that, then I'm with you. I don't think you should ever encourage suicide in someone whose life has the potential, excuse me, the potential to get better.
That reminds me, did you get my link from last night where I linked the article about the woman that basically persuaded her boyfriend to kill himself?
Yeah, someone also sent that to me. I checked it out. It was interesting. It kind of reminded me that evil is a real and active force in our universe. Hopefully people will believe me now when I say evil is real, because I don't know what else to say about that woman. By the way, for the people in the chat who don't know, there's this one lady. What was her name? I don't remember her name. Someone sent me an article to it where she basically convinced her boyfriend to kill himself. Basically, she forced him to get into the car and pumped it full of carbon monoxide, I think it was. And when her boyfriend got out the car to go, you know, save his life because he didn't want to die, she actually told him to get back into the car so he can finish killing himself. So, long story short, her boyfriend actually thought about not dying, and then she told him to get back in and go kill himself. So, yeah, and I think the man who died, he had a track record of threatening suicide apparently, but he never. I guess he really didn't actually want to do it apparently, since he tried to save himself, and his girlfriend, told him to finish it off.
Yeah, that was a pretty twisted one, I think. Like, the other thing I don't get is, why would you end up doing that to someone almost? Like, why do you want to persuade this person to go and kill themselves? Like, it doesn't make sense.
You're right, man. That's a good question. Um, that's all I can say. I don't know what she was thinking. I don't know why she even wanted him to die, because I didn't read that he did anything bad to her. Um, as far as I know, it seemed like, I know they had an internet relationship. I think they only met in person a couple of times, so it's not really like they were super actively invested in each other. It's just that I don't know why she wanted him to do that. She was just a twisted person. So I think if anything, we just have to wait till more facts come out about it until revealing, because it really just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem like he did anything to her.
Maybe she was just a serial killer in the making. Because the other thing I know is that he had depression and was contemplating suicide. And then she ended up saying basically, okay, tell me when you're going to do it. And then when he didn't want to do it, she said, get back in and go do it. Like that kind of thing, like egged him on to do it. Like, I don't know. It's just strange.
Yeah, man. It's just an example of just pure evil enacting in our culture. I just can't. I don't know. Like I said, I need to know more to explain that. I don't know what that woman was thinking and why she wanted him. I don't know why she thought that was a good idea.
Do you think some people are actually born like that? Like they're born with a certain either chemical arrangement in their head or whatever that they basically will grow up to kill someone?
You mean like a psychopath?
Sort of. Like just from the point you're born, this person will eventually go kill someone.
I think so. Like I said, well, not every psychopath's a bad person. I know it's a lot huge negative connotation to that word, but yeah, I think some people are born with different mental problems and mental deficiencies. I can't name any off the top of my head that would lead to someone doing that kind of activity or forcing someone to do that. I think for the most part, it's probably more learned behavior than anything, or a lot of different anger and frustration. I highly doubt I highly doubt that girl was born that way. I do think it was probably something that happened in her environment that led her to think that that was an acceptable thing to do. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe she knew it was wrong and twisted and did it anyway. I don't know. But as far as answering your question goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure some people are kind of born, not playing with the full deck of cards.
Yeah, I think some people are just born with a certain mentality that's different from the norm, and like it happens in general. Like a lot of genius people were born and they were very different, very young, and they had abilities that were just generally better than people the rich should have. Like some people might just view things differently when they're young and they see killing as either moral or it gives them almost pleasure and it just manifests it and they go and do it.
Yeah, I think yeah. I'd have to put in a lot more research into it. But I'm pretty sure there's some different type of mental capacities that would make you more willing or more capable of doing it than others.
Your turn again.
All right, man. Last topic I have left kind of brings us back to feminism, and that is the male feminist. The male feminist is a very interesting topic to me, in that these men, for some odd reason, are so embroidered with self-hatred that their brains cannot even process it sometimes, they'll sit there and say, I just hate men, and I hate my maleness and everything, and for some odd reason, the self-awareness just never taps them on the shoulder and says, hey, you're not an evil person, stop self-flagellating yourself. And even the white guilt too. White guilt is another mentality that is just really confusing to me. When white people are guilty about things they haven't done, so pretty much just the whole mentality of self-hatred within male feminists and white guilty people.
I think a lot of them, as they're taught that it's like if you look at history, you can take out all the bad parts and just say this is why they are bad. This is what you should believe, and ignore all the good parts that equalize it out. Like you could do that with white people say, oh, they're the people that enslaved everyone. They conquered all these countries with it, and then leave out all the parts where they were the first ones to try and end slavery and all this kind of thing. Or you could leave out other parts of history. Or they could see a bunch of people that are around them that fit what they know. Like you could be a general nice guy, and then you want to look out for women, and then all you see around you is a bunch of people that basically don't care. They sleep with whoever they want. They try and use and abuse women, and thus it builds in your head, they're wrong. I'm one of them because I'm a male, and it almost builds up over a period of time. Like I don't think a lot of things that happen to people happen within a week or two, or even a month or a year. I think it actually builds up throughout a good decade or more. Like it's something that actually manifests in their head. And when you're trying to undo some of that thinking, like you could tell them, oh, not all men are that bad. But then when they say, oh, but all these women are raped, or all men are rapists, and all these women tell me all these horrible things, then it's kind of hard to almost pull that out of them and say, yes, but there are also all these good parts, all these good people, and there are also all these bad women. Because a lot of people who defend and white knight also can't see the bad in what they defend. Like they can't ever see the bad feminists. You can't ever see the women that abuse children or that kind of thing. They just see one side.
Yeah, true that, man. I've noticed the white knights at no point can never acknowledge the fact that even women do cruel things to men. And that's the thing that really bothers me about them so much. It's not even so much their willingness to defend women, although that's annoying. What really makes them detestable to me is they completely ignore when women do bad things to men. And the thing is, it's not like there are a huge margin of women who are just terrible to men. No, but when women do bad things to men, we still have to call them out the same way we'll call out any man who abuses a woman or any man who does something to another man, right? But These white knights will defend the honor of a woman just because she's a woman, and even if she did something wrong or hurt another person, they'll still defend her. You know, and I
Oh,
think
yeah,
that's that's the huh?
it'll still be the man's fault somehow. They'll go through some.
Yeah. They'll go through some mental gymnastic course to get to the conclusion that the man probably deserved her. He still did something. And I think more than anything else, that's probably the most damage that these white knights cause, is the fact that they will let women get away with murder. Sometimes literally will let them get away with murder or attempted murder because she was a woman, and they'll just let her go. And if you don't ever criticize some of these people or try to force them to be better, they're not going to be better. You know, so these white knights give these ladies a pass when they're doing some of the most evil and vile actions just because she's a woman. You know, even with the story we just talked about, you know, some white knight will probably be like, well, maybe the guy did something to her, and maybe she was trying to protect herself from the guy because he was so depressed and he was making her depressed. So he told her to kill herself so she wouldn't be sad anymore. You know, like some kind of mental bullshit like that, to get to the conclusion that it was his fault that his girlfriend tried to tell him to go kill himself. And I think that that is probably more than anything else the worst damage some of these guys bring to the table. And they just completely lack the ability to see evil and all of its manifestations in the world. And it really bothers me.
The almost ironic thing that is about feminism I see now from looking back on it is that when they talk about patriarchy and men being the reason that it hurts men, is that they actually make a lot of sense. Because a lot of almost the things that men complain about at times, like the men get more prison time or that women get better off in a divorce, is that most of the rules were made by a system that was dominated by men. And I think that's where they try and get that from. Like, you may hate us, but the whole reason this happened is because of this entire hierarchy. Like, even when you complain about the nice guy in the friend zone, it's still another guy that has to interact with a woman to be that almost bad boy type that exists. Like, if he didn't exist, then the woman wouldn't go after him, and then the entire problem almost wouldn't happen. Like, I understand what they mean by that, but to almost separate it out and say that we men have to do all this and just don't worry about the women, they're not bad, they're great, they're fine, they've done nothing wrong, is completely delusional.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, delusional is just the best word to use there. Nothing else can describe that. Just completely off touch with reality itself. You know, and one thing that gets me sometimes is kind of how can they stare in the face at again, even just a news story we just covered, and say, nah, I don't see anything wrong that this woman did. You know, and I've seen some of them. You know, a teacher will rape a young student, and it'll be his fault. You know, he probably wanted it. You know, which ironically sounds a little more like the rape culture feminists say we live in. But that's another topic unto itself. You know, you'll have, like I say, they'll stare at these different problems that some vile women do, and just completely gloss over it, and will say, well, I mean, women have been repressed all this time, and she probably was tired, or you know, he probably deserved it, and all of that jazz. And it's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, the bad thing about when a teacher actually rapes a student is that how many men will also say the exact same thing, is that he was lucky. Oh, I like so many women. Oh, I would want to have sex and all this stuff with her. And it's just, you're creating the own problem here. Like, you can't, like, when other men stand up and say, oh, we'd be lucky to have it, then it's just degenerates the entire thing. And the other bad thing is that you can't have, like, on one hand, a male teacher rapes a woman, female student, and it's horrible, and then on the other side, it's completely all right. Like, you just, I don't know, it's just weird how they create that in their head. Like, I think either some people that said that either have an ego issue, or they can't imagine that, no, that person actually didn't want it. Like that male student, just because he's a guy, he didn't want to have sex with a teacher. Even if she looked hot, he did not want it. And that's one of the main issues I think about that. And the other issue with the idea of rape culture in general is that whenever you see a woman raped on the news, no matter even if she lies, they will defend the person that lied. Like even if they go out and say, "Oh, that person lied about it," well, they were justified because, oh, this other woman might have been raped, or oh, she was scared of what the guy would do, and it's just like you can't defend that kind of behavior and then still expect me to take real rape seriously when people can just lie about it like it's no big deal.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, what's in that topic?
Well, that was it for me, man.
I got a few. I'm just thinking of which one to go on first. I think another good topic usually is abortion. Is usually, yeah, let's go with abortion. Like when people try and argue either on either side, like men want the option to sometimes have a financial abortion, or they just want to step away from being a parent altogether, and then women basically kill the child, like, and they go through an abortion that way. Like your general thoughts on the whole issue, I guess, for now.
Well, I could say, go ahead.
No, I asked you for your opinions on it in general.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something. Anyway, in general, no, I don't think any woman should get an abortion in general, unless her life's in danger. I can say I definitely think. Well, I would say she has the option if she was raped, even though I can personally say I wouldn't want her to, but that's me personally. I wouldn't want her to do it, but of course I'd give her the option to. As far as convenience sake goes, no, I don't think a woman should do it. That being said, that doesn't mean I also believe that the government should slide in there and say it's illegal. I will, put you in incarceration. Um, I think there should be some limits and limitations to what the government can tell us to do and not do. But on the one hand, when it comes with abortion, I do think it's certainly a discussion to be had about whether or not it's murder. I think there's no real way around the fact that you're killing something. I don't really think a discussion can really be had against. You'd have to go through some serious mental gymnastics to say something hasn't died if you have an abortion that like after 2 or 3 weeks after conception. I don't really think you could say something's not living there. But as far as outlawing it outright, no, I don't think it should be illegal outright, because I do think there's certain situations where I think the pregnancy will be a threat to the mom. However, to get an abortion out of convenience sake, I would say, is certainly a absolutely terrible thing to do. I don't think anyone should ever get an abortion because they don't want to take care of the children, whether they not they can or can't. Because I know there's multiple different ways to give up the child for adoption. I know there are certain states that allow women to drop their babies off at a fire station and leave and never look back. There's so many different ways. I mean, there's even so many different ways for women to just not get pregnant point blank. There's so many different options for women. It's ridiculous when it comes to contraceptives. I was just doing some research the other day. I think there's like a birth control patch I never even looked into. I didn't even know that existed. There are birth control shots. There's the pill. There's Plan B. There's female condoms. There's, you can even get your tubes tied. There's so many different ways for women to avoid getting pregnant. To get to an abortion, I mean, you had to have not been thinking about that, and so I don't, like I said, point blank, I don't think a woman should get an abortion out of convenience sake. I also don't understand why no one talks about fathers when it comes to abortion either, because our society will lambaste any man who just leaves. Our society, even in Canada, pretty much no matter where you are, hates deadbeat dads, right? But God forbid we say, hey, maybe it's a shitty thing for women to get an abortion and never tell the father that she did that. That's the thing I find to be completely detestable. If a woman gets pregnant and never says anything to that man, I mean, she never knew how he would feel about that situation. There's so many men who wish they could have children or wish they could be with their children, and they never knew that this woman years later. You know, and I think that happens way too much and way too often. And like I said, in general, at the end of the day, I don't think a woman should ever get an abortion out of convenience because she doesn't want to take care of a kid, especially if she doesn't tell the father that, well, he can be a father, you know?
Yeah, I think another issue with abortion in general is that you don't always see the pros and cons of an issue right there and then. Like, they'll come over time sometimes. Like, one of the things is that way a while back in Russia, the amount of abortions was larger than the amount of births they had. Like, it got to that kind of scale. And I think one of the things that people don't think about when it comes to abortion is the whole moral side of it, how you treat life and what you think of life in general. Like, if you have all these different ways to prevent pregnancy in the first place, like, kind of comes down to the moral side of it. You almost being irresponsible. Like, you're not thinking about what you're doing in the end. Like, you have condoms, you have pills, you have all these different types of ways to prevent you from being pregnant, and yet people still do it when they don't want a child. Like, it just doesn't make sense from that point of view. And for the other side, for the uh, what was it, the male one that people talked about, is that the financial abortion, is that then you're going to have the issue where you're going to actually have the opposite of what women do in divorce. You're going to have men who get with a woman, end up sticking her with a kid, and then just running away.
Well, even then, I would still say it's a lot better than, you know, downright killing them. And the thing is I wouldn't want any man to leave his child, but like I said, I personally find it to be a lot better than downright just removing the fetus from your womb.
And the issue with both
Go ahead.
solutions, though, is that you're looking at the end like, I've gotten pregnant. Well, in order to get pregnant, two of you, unless you got raped, two of you had to decide, okay, we're going to have sex, in which the end result, could be getting pregnant. So you should either actually take contraceptives or you should do something else. Like, the fact that people in Russia started using abortion as a natural contraceptive is kind of a bad sign. When you go through so many abortions that your live births are less than the amount you basically threw in the dumpster like it was nothing.
Yeah, eventually your birth rate's in the net point. And eventually, after a while, you're not going to have people to replace the individuals who are working and producing and whatnot. So I mean, our country, our society, we have to reproduce, man, to keep our society functioning, to keep everything going. And so I think hopefully it never gets to, here in America, never gets to a point in Russia where we're just using it as a form of birth control. I mean, there's so many different options for women nowadays, including just not having sex. You know, God forbid you just not do something with random people that you meet. But yeah.
That's another thing I don't get. Having no sex is bad, having lots of sex is seen as good. Like, whoever spun that around, I don't even know how they did that. Like, if you're telling someone not
Yeah, that's a
Like, if you're telling someone not to have sex, it makes sense. You now have a 0% chance, basically, of ever getting STD, pregnant, or any of those types of things. It makes sense. It might not be what you want to do, but they have a point. You're never going to get some kind of pregnancy or STD unless someone basically rapes you.
goes yeah, exactly. Give me 1 second.
Yes, okay.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't know who was able to convince our American society that you're a shitty individual if you don't have sex. That's actually the other day I was having a conversation with this one guy who was he said he was high functioning man with Asperger's, and a lot of his coworkers are making fun of him because he doesn't have he doesn't have a girlfriend, doesn't have sex with anyone, which I find to be pretty immature. I kind of figured that was something that stopped after you got out of high school, but
It,
I guess not. Yeah, you think that as adults we would not give two shit flying fuck if people were having sex or not, but I mean, no, I mean he's still dealing with this stuff. I don't think he told me how old he was, but you know, he's an adult working and whatnot, and he still has to deal with people, you know, saying bad things about him because he's not having sex or he doesn't have a girlfriend, and it's that's just ridiculous. Uh,
yeah, it reminds
and
me of
wow.
that website where people went to go to have affairs, and how all the interviews and news stories you had all these people saying, "Oh well, men always cheat, men always have affairs," and it's just like, where do you come up with this stuff?
Yeah, exactly. You know, all men. Yeah, I think the other day I sent you one little thing. I think what was her name, Amber Nicole or something like that. She said, "I think all men cheat." Like, where did you come up with this pool of all men are cheaters? So maybe
Probably
all the
because she
guys
was
you
cheated
had
on.
sex with cheated. Yeah, exactly. All the guys she was with were cheaters because she picked terrible individuals to have relationships with. But all men aren't cheating on their wives and whatnot. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's another thing I've noticed in general. Going to a different topic, but in general, people almost always seem to attack the image of someone nowadays. Like even when you get to politics with people like Donald Trump, they're not attacking what he's saying, they're just attacking him as a person. Or
Oh,
they like
absolutely.
or they attack so-called conservative values without saying what they are. They completely misrepresent them and twist them and turn them just to make their own point. And instead of saying what they represent and what they can do and why they should be great, they just try and deflame the other people.
No, man, I can give you a really good example of that the other day. I think my friend Davis Arini was getting lambasted on Twitter the other day, and a lot of the people were just making fun of his skull. They were just making fun of him. They weren't arguing with about any point he ever made. They weren't talking about anything that he ever said. They were just talking about the fact that he had a cowboy hat and the fact that he had a skull and some of the frame in the background. That's it. But it wasn't about exchanging ideas. Same thing with Donald Trump. People will make fun of his hair, they'll make fun of the way he talks, or they'll make fun of the fact that he's arrogant, but they don't ever talk about his politics or the things he stands for. It's all about his hair and the way he looks. And you know, you're absolutely correct. And even when I found when people talk about conservatives, I really don't know much about conservative politics. I really don't know much about politics in general that much anymore because I kind of stopped following the bullshit. But from what I've seen, I've only seen people ever just make fun of conservative. I don't know very many people even take conservatives seriously. That's how much I've seen people make fun of conservatism. I don't know anyone who even takes anything a conservative says seriously but other conservatives. And even then I've seen other people who call themselves conservatives take a step back. That's how much of a joke conservatism has become from what I've seen, and yet that's it. That's even the Young Turks is a good example. Will just spread nothing but propaganda against conservatives and call them all a bunch of mean names and make fun of them as if it helps with their arguments or helps with their points. They're just only attacking what they look like, but never actually addressing the issues and never actually talking about solutions. And then people will wonder how come we always get these stupid guys in the office. It's because we never actually criticized them. We only talked about their hairstyles, you know?
Yeah, for the British elections, I think it was either the Liberal leader or someone else, and a bunch of questions against him went basically like, but aren't you a bit nerdy? You don't look very tough, you don't sound very strong. Like, aren't you a bit of a wimp? And like all these kind of things. And it's like, what does that have to do with the actual issues? And then they give someone else like real questions about like what you're gonna do about the economy and these kind of things, and it almost like biases it towards it. Like you should hate this person because he's nerdy and weak and all this stuff, and you don't give him a chance to actually say what he would do. And that's another thing is that when people say, well, what would these people do? It's like, and they have an example for what someone else would do. It's like, well, if someone actually asked them, what they would do in the first place, then you wouldn't have that question to answer.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think our culture in general, our Western society, is become very focused on the outer shell without ever really thinking about the inside, the actual ideas, and that's why nothing's ever going to get fixed until we start, peeling back the bullshit from our eyes and actually looking and taking a critical look at the problems and how to actually fix it. Will we really get to a better state than us just mudflinging,
Yeah, that's another weird thing is that a lot of feminism was about trying to wear what you want, like go out wearing a bikini and all this stuff. And then several years later, they're complaining about being objectified and sexualized when they ended up wanting to be sexualized in the first place. Like, you have to realize if you do one thing, then there are going to be consequences and there are going to be benefits. If you don't, if you wanted to dress basically in a very provocative way, then you should realize that that's very provocative and that's going to raise a few eyebrows with other guys and other women. Like, you should realize that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you would think common sense would tell them this, but some of them aren't really even. Some of them actually think that you can actually desexualize breasts. Some of these people are actually so delusional that they can actually think that they can get men to no longer be attracted to women's boobs. You know what I mean? Like, some of these people, they really aren't playing with the same rules we're playing with, man.
Yeah,
Nice way
that's
to
it.
put it.
That's another thing is that most of their examples of so-called sexism are people finding other people attractive. Like, yeah, that Ted Howard street harassment video, most of it was saying, "Hello, how are you? You're beautiful," and all that stuff. And it's just like,
And
if you
yeah,
find that
that's the
street harassment,
best.
yeah, like if you find that street harassment, I'm kind of afraid of what else you think. Like a lot of
you,
times, like a
yeah,
lot of times,
go ahead.
like it goes back to when I think I said it in one of the videos actually. Is how do these people make friends if they're so afraid of outside contact? Like a guy can't walk up to you and
Exactly.
say hi and all that stuff. Like, how are you ever gonna find a partner, or how are you ever gonna do an interview or this kind of thing if you're so scared of someone coming up and saying hello, how are you to you?
Yeah, I mean, one question you have to ask, if that's bad, what's worse? If saying "Hey, beautiful" is a terrible thing, how do you even get worse than that? What can you imagine how much more terrible it can get to that level? I mean, it's ridiculous. Um, and the thing is, man, I think to a certain extent, maybe I can understand some of the more lewd comments. Yeah, I guess if guys are talking about like your butt and whatnot, and maybe some women are really insecure just in general. And I think part of what it might be is just in general that insecurity gets thrown in their face a lot. Because I know personally, I can have close female friends and I can call them pretty, and like I said, we know each other, and they'll still be taken aback from it. Imagine a complete stranger saying that you look good. It just might, I don't know, it might bother them a lot. And I think that might be part of it. I'd have to think about that some more to flesh that out. But I think maybe it's just some of these girls maybe aren't even used to being complimented. They just are taken aback by people saying nice things about them, and it really bothers them. And maybe some of them just want to complain. I do genuinely think some of them just want to have a problem because, in general, it's just some of the most benign thing in the world to have someone say, "Hey, sexy, I hope you have a nice day."
Yeah, and the other thing is that the definitions for some things have been expanded so much that it's almost gotten lost. Like, rape used to be very specific. It was basically someone held you down against your will, was very violent, and it was something basically horrible, and it isn't something you would ever want to see or hear about, or that kind of thing. And yet they've basically expanded it to the point where if you look at a woman the wrong way, that's rape. But that's not even the
Yeah,
same thing. And the sad thing about it is that the entire time they've been fighting over this rape thing is that you've had sexual assault the entire time that covered all the things that it used to cover, and now almost covered all by rape. And it's just like you didn't change anything. All you've done is made almost scaremongering, almost like you've changed it so bad that you've made people think that someone looking at you a certain way is also going to end up at what rape is, where you're going to end up with a knife against you, and you're going to end up being sexually assaulted in a horrible way.
No, yeah, you're right. Some people actually believe in the stare rape thing. You know, that a man looking at you the wrong way is literally tantamount to him raping you, or he raped you with your eyes, or he raped you with his imagination.
You're
I mean,
undressing with his eyes.
I mean, yeah, or like he's undressing me with his gaze. You know, like that kind of crazy shit. Where I mean,
Yeah,
it just gets to this crazy point. No, I've seen blog posts like that, man. There's a lot of crazy feminists in the world. You have no idea. I mean, there are topics and videos I haven't even made yet. It's just some of the craziest shit I've seen. But yeah, you know, they'll have some. I've seen some women just complain about the fact that guys are just looking at them and just are attracted to them, and that's rape. That's the level. That's the level it's gotten to with some of these feminists.
the other thing I never understood really is why at the same time you'll have issues like people being stoned to death for being gay or being a woman that got cheated on or whatever, and you'll have all these issues in the world. And instead of focusing on that, they'll focus on tiny things like he spread his legs too much in a bus station. He looked to me
Yeah,
the other way.
precisely.
Like, I don't understand how they did that. And the other thing I never understood is how you can have the president of the United States basically go up and say, okay, this wage gap exists, even though everyone in my department knows otherwise, and people still
Well,
believe
he's
him.
it's propaganda, man. At that point, he's just manipulating the useful idiots. You know, there's no way in hell Barack Obama thinks that.
His own
It's kind of the
department
same
doesn't.
thing. Yeah, I mean, it's like saying the war on women. You know, there's no war on women here in America. Nobody hates women to such a degree. I mean, even the MGTOWs for the most part just want to not interact with ladies. Some of them are misogynistic, but for the most part, they just don't want to talk to them. Nobody wants to actively hurt women here in America except the very fringe group of individuals who exist. So I mean, to say that there's a war on women is just complete. It's just a lie. It's not even just it's a bold-faced lie. You know, women have so many different privileges here in America. It's almost unreal how they can simultaneously think that they're oppressed, and yet, you know, some women can punch men in the face, and if that man retaliates, other guys will come protect that woman. I mean, how are women oppressed when they have random bodyguards walking around ready to defend them at any moment? So
Yeah, I remember a few videos like that. There was one on a train where a woman was beating the hell out of a man, and no one did anything, just kind of looked around, and after like 5 minutes, where she eventually, I think, kicked him in the head, and someone goes, why are you doing that to him, and all that stuff. And it's like, it's 5 minutes later, if a guy did this to a woman, if he even touched that woman, you would have gone over there and smashed his head into the ground. Like, it's just bizarre.
yeah, man, I think I saw the same video you're talking about just the other day. Um, where actually, well, maybe it was a different video, but I remember the woman was just pretty much just being belligerent, just, you know, slapping. She slapped the phone out of this one guy's hands twice, you know, just putting her hands on everybody. You know, she smacked the guy in the head with her purse. The guy, I think he smacked her. He smacked her so hard it made like a cracking sound. All of a sudden, it was at that moment some guy got up and they started fighting with each other. But just exactly what I said, you know, some white knight came along. No one said anything to this woman when she was running around smacking everybody. But the moment she got smacked in the face, after she smacked like 3 people in the face, she hit like 3 different people. No one did anything. She got hit once, and now finally people stood up and did something. You know, and if someone had just called her out from the very beginning, nobody would have been hit. You know, if someone would have just told her to calm down when she started, that never would have happened. So
Yeah, it's odd sometimes. It's the same with gender. Even if you look at gender, you usually end up having a scale between masculine and feminine anyway. So I don't understand the whole point of it. Like, if you're so concerned about people just being themselves, why do you need 50 different labels to say, okay, I'm 0.2% masculine and I'm 0.9% feminine and all this stuff? Like, in the end, most of us just associating the same things they fight against. Like, they say they hate gender roles and all this stuff, but they still and gendered toys and all that, but they still then associate dresses with women and all this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's not even that, but some of them are even like hyper feminine or hyper masculine. Like they take it to the absolute extreme of what they think femininity is and will adopt that, right? Instead of trying to just be whatever they want to be. And it's the most interesting thing in the world to me, how some of these women will say, gender roles are dead, and then they'll walk around and like paint the room all pink and whatnot, and they'll wear dresses, and they're just, so frilly and whatnot. But then they'll simultaneously be like, there's no such thing as gender. It's a social construct and whatnot. But I just like the color pink because reasons. You know what I mean? Like they'll play into the most feminine characteristics ever, and then talk about how gender is just someone arbitrarily came up with it. Apparently, someone woke up on a Saturday afternoon and was like, "Well, this is what a female is." You know what I mean? So.
And then people like Emma Watson will turn around and say, "But I like chivalry. When it benefits me, I like it."
Yeah, exactly. The he for she, the most original idea ever created, by the way. And that's another thing that, yeah, I mean, the thing that gets me about he for she is I mean, I thought feminism was empowering to women. What do they need men for? I thought women needed men like a fish needed a bicycle.
The fish grew legs and now it needs a bike to get to the Walmart. I don't know.
I know, man. The fish evolved, man. That's what happened. Fishes evolved. They couldn't swim anymore. Then they said, man, I think I need that bicycle now.
Yeah. But the part I don't get about it is it's supposed to be about female empowerment, yet you need men to do things for you at the same time. Like, you can't have it
It's
both
not
ways.
even. Yeah. Precisely. And then that's one thing they can't seem to grasp. They want men there to do things for them, but they don't like men.
And yeah, half of them have boyfriends in the end as well. That's the other strange thing. Like, they'll end up saying all these bad things about men, like, I forget. I think Marina Shut Up has a boyfriend. So
she does, yes.
The person we responded to in Not All Men 1 and 2 has a boyfriend. Lacey at one point, or still does, have a boyfriend. It's like, you think all these men are bad, and you say all these bad things about men, how they do all these bad things to society and how men oppress women. Yet you date a man.
Yeah. And that's the most interesting thing, isn't it? And they're white men too. They're their own oppressors.
They're all white.
They're not dating. Yeah, they're not dating Mexicans. They're not dating Chinese people or black people. They're dating straight cis white men. Their own oppressors by their own admission. They're with them. I mean, what is that? Is that Stockholm syndrome or something going on here?
Internalized misogyny. I don't know. They keep on making up new words every other day.
Yeah, internalized misogyny. There you go. They hate themselves so much that they're dating their own oppressors.
I don't know. I think the whole problem with a lot of movements like that is that they don't think about the entire picture. Like, I get when I said back to the child example, like, I get that some women probably wanted to look after their kids if the father was bad way back in the 1800s, or they wanted to work and the dad could stay home. Like, that would make sense. But then to say that and then twist it so that only the women get the children is where you go wrong. Like,
yeah,
you gotta either stick to your goal, or you gotta at least practice what you preach. Like, you can't say I'm for equality, but all men are rapists.
Yeah, you can't say there's no difference between men and women, but men are pigs.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, what does that make women?
I've seen that meme all over the place. Oh, men are pigs, all women are equal to men. And it's just like, okay, so you're a pig?
Yeah, I know, right?
So,
but that's the craziest thing to me, man. Watching feminists ask men to do things for them. It's it's delicious irony to me. It's like, what happened to that bicycle you didn't need?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comments like that where they'll be doing something, trying to do something that's usually a man's job, like they'll be trying to lift a desk or they'll be trying to build this or try and do that, and they're like, oh, here's a man over there, let's go and ask him to do it, and the men will say no thanks and walk away, and they'll start cursing out at him, and it's just like, well, you said you don't need anyone to help, so why you also need me now that you've got to do something hard? Like, they probably
Yeah,
don't realize that you, like, I think it works on both sides. Like, I think a lot of men don't know what women have to do, and a lot of women don't know what men have to do. But then they end up being ignorant of that, and they end up saying, oh, well, since they should do it anyway, why not just do it?
yeah,
Like, I think a lot of people also, like, when they think of being a parent, like, going off on a different tangent, but when they think of doing that, like, that's one example, is that they don't think, okay, I've got to now do all these things. I've got to buy diapers. I've got to look after all these expenses. I've got to get them checked for health concerns and all these things. Like, they don't think about that. They just think, oh, it's a sweet little baby. It'll grow up and love me and all this stuff. And they don't think about the end picture. And I think that's what a lot of these movements do. They think about the ideal world, but they don't either think how to get to it, or they'll think how to get to something, but they don't then end up getting what they want, and they end up being frustrated. Like, a lot of women probably want like a decent guy to be with, and then they end up being mad and end up calling everyone else horrible and evil because they end up picking the wrong guy, kind of thing.
yeah. Goes enough. All right, man. I think that might be a good place. Huh?
But that was a good chat.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty much a good place to wrap us up. Going on for about an hour, 45 minutes.
Well, 2
So,
hours 45 if you count all the technical issues.
yeah, that's yeah. But so I mean, yeah, like I said, I think this is a good place to stop. Thanks for being on. Thanks for having the chat with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah, and for everyone watching, thanks for stopping by and listening this long. Hope you guys have a great day, man. So that being said, adios.